From Nashville, Tennessee.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Lee, and I'm alcoholic. I got a bad case, and I'm certainly honored to be here, and I love you. I've been crying off and on all day, which is good. Maybe we'll get what's in here tonight instead of what's in here. I like to open anything I do with a quotation from Lois Wilson, who was asked one time what she did in the moment of silence, and she said, "I invite God to the meeting." And it's not that I don't believe God's here. I do believe that. But I get a special gift when I stop and honor that presence. And one of my great teachers, a fellow named Don Pritz from Denver. Don't go to bed tonight without getting one of Don's talks, by the way. They've got some of them over there. But Don didn't say God was a gentleman. He said he learned to treat God like a gentleman. And gentlemen don't go where they're not invited. They don't stay where they're not made welcome. So we're going to do that. The other thing I do in the moment of silence is ask God, help me not judge the speaker. Now, you don't have to do that. But meetings get better everywhere when I started doing that. So if you would, let's take a couple of moments and literally just acknowledge the presence of deity, and I'll just meet you back here. Amen. Wow, thank you. I want to thank everyone, Susan. I want to thank James, who has stayed in contact with me and kept me more or less informed as to what was going to be going on here. Ryan and Sadie have been great hosts. Miss Linda and I have had a grand time, and we're most grateful. And thanks for a wonderful meal. Golly, wow. Huh? Was that not wonderful, don't you think? I need to tell you also, I have a central nervous system disorder other than the one you expect. And I have an my hands shake, and I have an involuntary head shake. Every once in a while, my head just does this. And I don't always know that I'm doing it. So it's going to look like I disagree with something I'm saying. I may later because I'm still learning and growing, but right now, if I say it, I actually mean it. So I just kind of wanted to clear that up. And I want to thank the other speakers for making this so hard for me. Gee, you guys have been fantastic. My old friend and mentor, Joe, kicked us off, and everybody's been great. And the local girls, Amanda and Rose, weren't they spectacular? Gee whiz, girls. I don't know where you are, but beautifully done. And Pat, of course, is always grand. I just get so much out of your talks. And Kelly, I just met you, but wow, how beautifully done. And my old friend, Danny. Nobody does it better, Danny. I look forward to hearing Lost Joe. For those of you who haven't heard, they decided not to have him picked up at the airport. I'm not sure how welcome you are, but he's the speaker tomorrow morning, and I look forward to hearing him, too. I think that's probably going to be pretty good. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I used to be bad to drink. And I'm sober since the 28th of June of 1984. I'm sober a bit over 34 years. And that's a long time for a guy that only committed to 28 days. It's been kind of an overkill thing. I didn't start drinking till I was 18 years old. I don't know how I made it that far. But I was going through fraternity rush. I'm a freshman in college. Fraternity boys walk into a bar. I follow them into the bar. And they order a beer. Strangely enough, I ordered the same brand of beer that they ordered. I'm a chameleon, and I can do what you're doing so fast it looked like we did it simultaneously. And we begin to drink this beer. I do not like the taste. I don't like the way the foam feels going down my throat. It makes me feel full, and I don't like that either. But I'm doing what they do, and I'm watching them like a hawk. And I'm drinking at the same pace they do. And we finished that first beer, and I'm thinking, let's get out of here. They ordered a second beer. Does anyone have a wild guess what I did? Right. And so by the time we got to the bottom of the second beer, I got the magic that all alcoholics understand. And the earthlings do not understand it. They don't, because it doesn't do that for them. They waste every drop they drink. And I didn't fly from Nashville, Tennessee to talk to you. I came to talk with you. Play with me. Trust me, it'll be more fun. And I just got taller when I drank. Who got taller? Taller? Danny? No? Better looking? Oh, yeah. Pimples, right off. Expert on many subjects. Well, you can hear the experts. Yeah, we have experts. It's so clear. Why didn't I see it before? Fantastic dancer? Yeah, you can hear the dancers too. Yeah. And now, gentlemen, now I can talk to the ladies, right? God, what would you pay for that? A lot, apparently. And ladies, you can stand to listen to it, right? This is the magic juice that works for everybody. I've been looking for this all my life, and I didn't know. And I paid a high price for all of those. I'd have paid a big price for any one of them. And I haven't gotten to the big one. The big one was for the first time in my life, something deep inside me went, oh. And it was just okay to be Scott. I was 18 years old the first time it was okay to be Scott. Now, I don't know how, but by the time I was 6 or 8 years old, I had realized what was going to be the greatest truth in my life until I'd been with you for a couple of years. It happened to be a lie, but it was the greatest truth in my life, and it was that I'm not good enough. I'm one of the defective ones. There are things that are wrong with me that can't even be worked on, much less fixed. And I became an actor as a small boy. And my act is I'm going to pretend to be the guy that I think you want me to be and use whoever's in front of me right now. I'm a different guy to everybody. With that thing in the core of my being, making all my choices, all my decisions. I'm constantly trying to hold up the right mask to keep you from seeing who I am. Because if you can see me like I see me, you'll feel about me like I feel about me, and I think I'm garbage. How am I doing? I hit pretty hard? Yeah. And so I became an actor. And what I like to think of as the end of my drinking, at one end of my territory, I got a customer who's a very religious guy. He knows a very religious Scott. Got a customer 40 miles away that's a Friday night party kind of guy. He knows a Friday night party kind of Scott. Got the boys in the pool room where I drink my beer and buy my dope. They know that Scott. I got neighbors, business partners, family members. Everybody knows a different Scott. And the greatest fear in my life is people from different parts of my life be at the same place, same time. How am I going to act? Right? And I'm acting all the time, just trying to hold up that right mask. And 2 beers later, I'm tall enough, smart enough to look it up. I can talk to the girls, expert on many subjects. And I transitioned in 2 beers from the fear that you would find out who I really am and not want me around. I transitioned to, you turkeys are awfully fortunate a cool guy like me is here. If you don't recognize that, that's an entire psychic change. Yeah, and that's what I needed to get over my alcoholism, because I think that's what alcohol gave me, was an entire psychic change. And that's why Dr. Silkworth says that's what I have to get over my alcoholism, is because that's what it gave me. I think it kept me alive until I get to you. If I was awake, I was somewhere between yellow and red alert. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to be on alert all the time. And that was the magic juice. I zipped through a 4-year college in 5 years and 2 summer schools. Where are you? Yeah, these are my people. Kurt, yeah. Figured you were one. And joined the United States Air Force in the 1960s. They were if you could fog the mirror, they'd take you. And they sent me to Valdosta, Georgia, where I speak the language, by the way, and to Air Force pilot training. In the second 6 months of that training, we flew the T-38, which you're all familiar with. You may not know that you are, but you are, because you saw the movie Top Gun, right? I got some news for Tom Cruise. That black airplane he's having the dogfights with was not a MiG. How do I know that? Because I flew them. Not in that movie, but I flew that airplane. It's the Air Force's T-38. It's a high-performance airplane. The word high performance in the United States Air Force means afterburners faster than the speed of sound. Take the runway in this airplane, I lock the canopy, I lock the brakes, I run up to military power, which is everything short of afterburner, release the brakes and roll a couple hundred yards and light the burners. A mile later, at 155 knots, which is about 170 miles an hour, which is fast for a tricycle, you think back on the stick. Don't move it. You never move the stick in this plane. It's so sensitive that when you get in the plane, you adjust your rudder pedals and your seat height so that your right forearm rests on your right thigh. If your arm's up in the air, you're all over the sky. Can't fly the plane. So at 155 knots, I think back on the stick, and she rotates, which means the nose wheel comes off. And within a couple hundred yards, she flies off, and I raise the gear. At 1,000 feet, I raise the flaps and begin to apply forward pressure on the stick to hold her level. She wants to climb bad. Hold her level at 1,000 feet till we get to 600 knots and pull up. And I'm leveled at 40,000 feet, 3.5 minutes after brake release. This airplane has a roll rate of 720 degrees a second. Yeah, I'll do the math for you. That's twice every second she'll do this. And your eyeballs won't track that if you're sober. It's a blur. It's a beautiful blur. It's a beautiful blur, but it's a blur. A loop is defined as a 360-degree turn through the vertical plane, pulling positive G's. And this plane, we enter a loop at 500 knots at 10,000 feet. Now, 500 knots is 550 miles an hour, pretty close. You pull up at 5 G's. Say what that means. You're pulling 1 G right now. It's force of gravity. At 1 G, a 200-pound man weighs 200 pounds. At 5 G's, a 200-pound man weighs 1,000 pounds. That's exactly what that means. Everything on you weighs times 5. That includes your upper eyelids. You'll notice that. 10,000 feet, 500 knots, 5 G's, wings level inverted at 20,000 feet. It takes 2 miles vertically to pull our rudder back. We lose 10,000 feet down the backside, total elapsed time on maneuver under 25 seconds. I'll tell you all that for 2 reasons. The first one, of course, is to impress you. Yeah, I mean, I'm up on that. Yeah, we got to get one of those. And the other is to help you see my alcoholism and maybe yours. We finished about 5:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to tell you about a particular night. I don't plan to get drunk this particular night. Now, I used to go out to get drunk a lot. That's my mission tonight. I'm going out to get drunk. If you're not going out to get drunk, I don't want you along. You're going to be a problem later. You've been out with them, haven't you? Yeah, they should do something else. And but did you ever get drunk by accident? Like on a night when you're sure you were going to accidentally drunk. Put them up. Who was accidentally drunk? All right. Okay. Yes. Yes. Not ladylike. And so the reason I don't play, you know who the Thunderbirds are, the Air Force's demonstration team? I did not fly with them, but they flew this plane for 7 years. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to be number 2 in a 2-ship formation. As the wheels are coming up, I'm going to slide up under the leader's tail. And my head's going to be 6 or 8 feet from his afterburner. And we're going to be pulling as many as 7.5 G's going over the top as fast as 700 miles an hour. Try to imagine you've just been notified that tomorrow morning at 7:30, we're going to strap you into the world's largest roller coaster. It's going to run for an hour and a half, and all you can do is ride. You would not plan to take a hangover, right? Are you tracking with me? I can sleep on roller coasters. That is nothing compared to what I'm fixing to do. So see if you can fill in the blanks, all right? So I'm clearly not going to get drunk tonight, but I do want to socialize the other pilots of my squadron. I think I'll drive to the club and have one, no more than. Okay, now I noticed some of you Al-Anons didn't play. I'd like to encourage you, all right? This is what you heard on the phone, and you believed it again. That's why you have to come to Al-Anon. The ones that ran screaming from guys like me don't have to come to your thing. No, they don't. So together now we're going to have one, no more than. I should be home by 6:30, no later than. There's a lot of pilots here tonight, right? We'll talk flying later. And but what happens is by the time I get to the bottom of the second one, I think I changed my mind. Now what happened? What happened was I got this craving Silkworth talks about. But if you got a craving that's been satisfied, you don't know you have it. And it's, oh, Fred, geez, I haven't seen you so long. Come on, we got 2 more, bartender. Fred, come on, we got to have a cold one. You know what, bartender? I think I'm going to watch 1 more quarter of the ball game. Go ahead and set them up again. James, rack them up. We'll shoot a couple of more games. 2 more over here, bartender, right? I think I changed my mind. I don't get home by 6:30 or 7 with 1 or 2 in me. I leave the club at exactly 1 o'clock in the morning because a lot of pilots. And drive home drunk with a hand over one eye. Where's your one-eye drivers? Come on. Yeah, boy, epidemic of that. Yeah. Some time ago, a fella came up to me and he said, I was always afraid a cop would see me with my hand up. So I carried a roll of duct tape and I tear off a piece. I thought, I'm not making this up. Wonder what a cop would have thought. And this other guy said he had same concern. He carried a pair of drunk driving glasses in his glove compartment. He had spray painted one lens black. And they don't think we're creative out there, right? So I drive home drunk. I walk in. My first wife rips into me. There's quite a bit of information in that sentence if you play it back. And I go into the bathroom for my after-drinking chores. Who puked at least once? Come on, put them up. All right. How about out your nose? Who puked out your nose at least once? All right. A lot of nose pukers in here. For those of you who never puked out your nose, you should know that if you do, Your sinuses will sting with every breath for a day or two after that. Yeah. Okay, who quit forever? Nose pukers, put them back up. All right, you puked out your nose. I knew you quit forever. I know it didn't stick, but all right, who quit forever? Come on, quit forever. All right, now I'm from the Bible Belt. Who quit forever in front of somebody? Who swore to somebody? Never again. Come on, never again. There you go. All right, who did it with one hand on the Bible? Any of those? Just a couple of us? Okay, who peed in the closet? Huh? Did you really? I never did that, and I'm very embarrassed for you. I don't believe I'd have told that myself. No. There's a big difference between sharing a meeting and a fifth step. You might have consulted your sponsor about the kinds of, that's not ladylike, I'm telling you right now. Now, I'll admit my first wife is still mad about that antique coffee table that used to be in the living room. All right? It had a lip all around all of you. There was no lying out of that one. And I thought the two most creative and important inventions of the 20th century, both invented by alcoholics, by the way. One was that little half-moon-shaped carpet they put around the commode for you to kneel on. That was invented by one of our people. You know, knees were all torn up on the hard bathroom floor, so we ought to. And that soft commode seat you could rest your head on in between heaves. Tell me our people did not invent that. Yeah, it's not as cold as a porcelain, but it's real soft. Those things were nice. So I'm in there bringing up my toenails, quitting forever. And I would pray the pre-AA prayer. We've been collecting them. I'm going to share a couple of the light-duty ones, and then we're going to pray the big one together. All right, so, and no, we're not doing hands on these. Pre-AA prayers, God, help me pass this test I didn't study for. Please don't let her be pregnant. I'm told that can be prayed in the first person. Please don't let those flashing red and blue lights be for me. Another popular pre-AA prayer. So let me reset the scene. It's somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the bathroom, kneeling on the prayer rug. And I'm down to just noise coming out. Right, you remember the noise portion of that? Yeah, so I'm down to just noise, and I would pray the pre-AA prayer. I'm going to do the first line, you do the second line. Trust yourself, you know the prayer. God, get me out of this end. Which is alcoholic for amen. Right? They should have charged you extra. You're having way too much fun over there. And I brushed my teeth and go back. By the way, if you're new and not sure you need to be here, we got a one-question test. Did you know the prayer? Stick around. We're your people. I'm sorry. And so I brushed my teeth and go to bed. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 2:30 in the morning, I get up at 6. Not even hungover yet. Remember that wonderland between drunk and hungover? Yeah. And there we are at 7:30 in the morning. I'm in that airplane. I'm wearing jump boots. I'm wearing a flight suit. I'm wearing a G-suit. I will black out without the G-suit today. Helmet, visor, oxygen mask, parachute. There's a 20-millimeter cannon shell under my seat. This is an ejection seat. I know guys that have fired it. All right, this is not a toy airplane. And we like the afterburners, and here we go. And I'm on this, oh my God. And I am dying. I call it the 4-7 hangover. It's the one where the butcher knife went in right here at the same place, right over the right eye every time. The eyelids are made out of sandpaper. I got a trimmer in my hands. The throat and nasal passages are raw from puking all of that acid the night before. I selected 100% on the oxygen lever. It will not cure a hangover. I tried it hundreds of times. I talked to Sandy Beach. If you don't know that name, don't go to bed tonight without getting some of Sandy's talks. He would swear to you. Same thing. And there we are trying it. And I am also, by the way, tight on the leader flying the mission. And what I just described to you, in case you missed it, was willpower. Many of us have tremendous willpower. It is no defense against our disease. The only thing that keeps me going is the absolute certain knowledge that I'll never feel this way in a plane again, because you see, last night I quit forever. And I meant it. Didn't you? Didn't you mean it every time you quit? I did. And by 5:30 that afternoon, I'm not quite well yet. I'm maybe 85%. I've been drinking whole milk and eating saltines. And Alka-Seltzer has a new product out with lemon in it. I've been field testing it for them. And I'll tell you one thing I know for sure. I ain't getting drunk tonight. There's no way I'm getting drunk. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be number 4 in a 4-ship formation. Ain't just going to be 2 of us. There's going to be 2 more. We're going to be doing this again tomorrow. There's going to be 4 of us. Nobody with a brain to get drunk the night before flying number 4. Do I have to go on, or can you tell the rest of this story? I thought so. Yeah. Over and over and over. And I would sit in that cockpit with that horrendous hangover. And I couldn't look into the past all the way to yesterday and say, wait a minute, weren't you dying of a hangover yesterday when we lit afterburners, and 5 days last week, and 20 days last month? And I was powerless over alcohol, and I was ignorant of the fact that I was powerless over alcohol. Tough combination, ignorant and powerless. I just had the gift. I finished at the top of my pilot training class. I did not work for it. I just had the gift. Some guys can hit a golf ball 300 yards. I could drive a plane. I just could. And my next assignment, I flew a 4-engine jet. All over the world. Literally, I have flown around the world twice in the same month. It's round, trust me. Which is to say that I've been drunk on 5 continents and however many islands we stayed on. I don't have a count on the islands. I got the continents. And I was sent to Southeast Asia. I flew Puff the Magic Dragon, the original side-firing gunship. Google AC-47 and have a look at what we did. Spooky if you knew her. And they phased that airplane out, and they had me flying an intelligence mission over Laos. And the president was on TV 2 or 3 times a week saying we weren't over Laos. I was. And anyway, I've got a little attitude problem about some of that, I'll admit. But I was, and I'm not proud about what I'm about to tell you, but I was so drunk at 4 o'clock one morning taxiing my plane out that I taxied it off into the grass. And there's a thing right there that says for air and pavement use only. They don't want this one in the grass. And they're picky about those sorts of things. And what had happened, I was confused. I was the scheduling officer, and I wasn't supposed to fly, but that was my crew. Anyway, and I was drunk by our standards, not this .08 social drinker thingy. Drunk. You got it. And I couldn't have driven the crew bus from the quarters to the flight line. We wouldn't have made that. But the taxiways are wide. And I'm taxiing south down and my co-pilot's what they call inside. He's looking, setting the flaps and doing the things he does inside, and I'm looking outside. When we get to the end of the taxiway, I applied the brakes very smoothly. I can remember thinking how smart I was because I left my window open in case I threw up. I could throw up out of the window, out of the plane. You see how smart that is? Seemed like it at the time. And I applied the brake. I didn't want to jostle myself, so I applied the brakes so smoothly I didn't stop the plane. Taxied off right into the grass off the end of the taxiway. Now, the runway is 2 miles long, tower's in the middle. I'm a mile from the tower. 4 o'clock in the morning, he can't see what happened. If there'd been a plane taxiing behind mine, if there'd been a rock, a ditch, a stump out there, somebody else be with you fine folks, and I'd still be in a military prison. I'm not trying to impress you, but simply tell you that's what alcoholism does to nice people like us. It has us disrespect the things we care the most about and tear the hearts out of the people that love us the most. That's what it does. And I survived that. People say, well, how do you fly drunk? Well, the answer is there's a big sky. If you stay away from the edges. They're marked by things like, moons and mountains, stuff like if you'll stay between those, there's not much in between. Anyway, I'm not proud of that, but it's what happens. It's what it does to us. And I came back to the United States. At my last duty station, I was an instructor pilot on a 4-engine jet with a worldwide mission. I was 26 years old. I just had the gift. And I resigned my commission and walked away. Most people don't get to live their dream. I got to throw mine away. I got a job as a sales rep in the summer of 1984. The senior partner of my company came to me one day and he said, "You're going to treatment right now or you're fired." The man was a great communicator. He could explain stuff and you'd understand when he got all finished. June 28, 1984, which was my 41st birthday, I signed in a little charm school outside of Atlanta, Georgia to overcorrect for a problem I didn't have so I could keep my job. That's how I got here. And so if you're here because you chose treatment over jail and a photo finish, we're glad to have you. Stick around. And it wasn't the staff at that facility that got me, it was you. It was you guys sitting in the day room listening to you talk about how you drank that I heard how I drank. because I told the lie so many times I believed it myself. If you'd asked me, I said, yeah, I drink. I have a couple of beers a couple times a week, occasionally a mixed drink, and 2 or 3 times a year I get drunk. I could have passed the lie detector. I believed it. I told the lie so many times. And I did not sleep the first 3 nights I was in treatment. And I'm laying there the 4th night knowing I ain't going to sleep again. You may recall, if you're not sleeping, you're not drinking, it stays dark for quite a while, actually, at night. It goes all the way to dawn, really. And well, it does. And I'm laying there one more time, and I got to stay in that bed. I mean, I take short bathroom breaks, and I don't remember the numbers. Like lights out at 11, I got to lay there till 6 in the morning. I'm just laying there. Excuse me. And what I'm about to tell you happened to me. I didn't do this. But I began to see my life, and as you might see, a series of short movies, the highlights. And I've always given myself credit for my intentions. I'm probably the best intended person you're ever going to meet. Excuse me, I got to get rid of this tickle. Sorry. And I always gave myself credit for my intentions. My favorite, I do close-up magic. And my favorite intention was I was going to get a clown suit. And instead of, when I'm on the road, instead of running the bars and chasing the girls, I'm put on the clown suit, take my magic kit into a children's hospital, do a show. You got to admit, take a great guy. I haven't done it, by the way, but one of these days. And I'm taking full credit for it. Our 3rd step talks about a decision. For me, the difference between an intention and a decision. An intention is followed by more intentions. A decision is followed by action. If you're not sure if you're taking the 3rd step, have a look at whichever is your dominant hand. If there's a pen in it and you're writing, you've taken the 3rd step. That's my opinion. And anyway, I didn't know any of that. And I'm laying there seeing this, and the intentions are not there, and it's not a pretty story. And I got to the place where I began to think about the worst thing I've ever done. I got one stands all alone. I'd always been able to stop it before. Jack knows how to stop that. Jose Cuervo knows all about stopping that. I can't get, not laying in a bed in a treatment center, I can't get it stopped. And I got this horrible thing I've done all over me, and I can't get anything between me and the grief and the guilt that goes with that. I do not know how long I lay there in the presence of all of that. But I reached what I was going to call a bottom for the next 30 years. A sponsee of mine changed the definition of bottom for me just a couple of years ago. But I got to the place where I'd have paid any price and done anything to get out from under that guilt. And from deep in my chest, my mind did not think this, my mouth did not say it, my vocal cords did not move. From deep in my chest, screamed, and it was loud in here, to a God I don't think I believed in. God, forgive me. What I'm going to tell you happened in the next moment. There was suddenly a magnificent light shining just on me and on my bed. And it was white, and it had a warmth and a texture, and I could feel it in every cell of my body, and I was aware of every cell of my body. Every one at the same time. I was aware of them. I cannot explain that to you. There was a partition behind my head. It came within about a foot of the ceiling. The light was coming over, but it was all focused on me. There were some shapes of glass, looked like colored glass, about the size of my hand. I think I remember a yellow one and a Kelly green. And the light was coming through those and all shining just at me. At the same moment, something heavy, I'm laying on my back, something heavy flew off of me, and I was not aware of it. And my body felt so light, I thought I was going to float off the bed, and it did not scare me. And I lay in the presence of infinite love. And with my eyes closed, I could see that room in better detail than I can see this one now, and I have 20/20 vision. And I lay there in the presence of infinite love. And I used to say God forgave me then, but I'm going to tell you what, I don't speak for God, and I'm not comfortable around people that do. I can tell you I received the forgiveness then. I don't know whether he ever judged me. I can't answer that. But I know that I received his forgiveness then. And I've thought about that a lot. I've had the privilege of telling this story a lot. I think the partition was there because as sick as I was, I could only stand so much love. And that light that I could feel in every cell of my body felt so good it almost hurt. And I cannot explain that to you either. And I'm not aware of anything else that passed between us except my receipt of forgiveness and laying in the presence of infinite love. And I have a soapbox, forgive me for it. It always rubs my fur the wrong way when I hear somebody say unconditional love. Love by definition is without condition. When you say unconditional love, you're implying conditional love, and I don't believe it exists. So forgive me for that soapbox. It's something you might want to think about. I lay there in the presence of infinite love, and I don't know how long. What we call time does not exist in that presence. Cannot explain that to you either. And for a while I lay there with him, And I must have slept because I woke up the next morning. I had not done that in several days. And I awakened wanting to be one of his guys, and that was my first cornerstone. And for those of you who feel like you've been robbed because you didn't get one of those, this is page 12 in Bill's story. But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. Within the last year, I've talked to maybe a dozen people who had experiences like that who drank again. All right, that was not the answer. That was only a cornerstone for somebody like me. It was, I think, hanging over the precipice. The rest of this was necessary. And the staff at that place saw a change in me immediately. And I thought I'd surrendered, and I was moving in that direction. A couple of weeks later, I was called into my counselor's office. He was a member of Al-Anon. I salute you. Thank God for Al-Anon. Thank God for what you people do. Thank God for you. And he was working on my aftercare plan. I came through the door with a great attitude to help this man design this aftercare plan. Okay, if you're new and you're not laughing, please listen very closely. And I came through the door and explained to him I'm not taking antabuse, I'm not going to halfway house, and I'm not staying past 28 days. To lay out the parameters, help the man do his job. I was just being helpful, as I'm sure you can see. And he said, you've left out something you aren't going to do. I said, what? He said, you're not going to make it. I took that personally, and I'm not a violent man. I make exceptions, and made one for him. Fortunately enough, it was verbal. And I don't think it's possible for me to carry a spiritual message in a bucket of sewage, so I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what I said to the man. I mean, the fact is I didn't actually even know his family, but generally what I said was, why'd you say that? And he responded with a question that changed my life and saved my life. He said, if you already know how to run a program, keep yourself sober, how does it you happen to be a patient here? I responded by very cleverly saying, and nothing came out, and I never had that experience before. I had to make some stuff up. I know you did too, but you can always answer. I can't throw anything at this. I've never had that before. That event didn't take as long to happen. It just took me to tell it. I sat in his office for a full hour. I remember none of the rest of it as my mind locked onto the question that cannot be answered. And I left there and went to lunch, and from there I went to the movie and group and phys ed, and wherever I'm supposed to be, my body's there, my mind is in Jim's office, trying to answer the question that cannot be answered. About 9 o'clock at night, dusk, it would have been probably early August, I'm walking across that campus, and I've always assumed the answer is flying through the air because it hit me in the chest. And this part of me knew the answer before this part knew, and the answer was and is, I don't know how to run a program to keep myself sober. If I'm going to be one of the few who make it, I'm going to have to do it all. This is not a cafeteria lunch for me where I can take what I want and need to rest and leave the rest. I need to win now. I got to win this time. I cannot afford to not win this time. Everything in my life that I care about hangs from my recovery. Here's my recovery. Here's what hangs from my life. Do you think a drunken pilot could have been killed with 2,500 hours of flying time? Not to mention some driving drunk and other stupid stuff. Oh, yeah, I should be dead a number of times. My sanity, been to the insane asylum. Been in a little rubber room with no doorknob on my side in my underwear. I think I was in my underwear. Anyway, I was in there. My life, my sanity, my freedom should be serving life in a military prison. I told you all about that. What else hangs from this? My relationship with this fabulous woman who spoke at lunch today. I hope you guys heard her if you didn't get the CD. Relationship with her and our kids and grandkids, my job, my home, my vehicle, my peace of mind. There's nothing in my life I care about at all that isn't hanging from my recovery. Nothing. For if I lose that recovery, everything I hold dear hits the concrete and shatters. And I didn't fly in here from Nashville to sell that to you. I don't know what your situation is. That's mine tonight with a 34-year chip on my pocket, and I must win now. I got to win this time. And at that point, I began to surrender what I lovingly call Step 1, Section B. Aha. And it was pointed out to me that the word therefore does not appear in Step 1. And I looked up punctuation in the dictionary, and that hyphen is not shorthand for the word therefore. What it does is it connects two unrelated thoughts. And I began there. Today, my definition of surrender and willingness and whatever the other one, bottom, is the same. And it's when somebody who's qualified tells me to do something I don't like that I don't think will help, that I don't want to do, and I do it anyway. And anything short of that, and I'm not surrendered, and I'm not at bottom, and I'm not carrying willingness. I didn't have that information at that time. Anyway, I zipped through their 28-day treatment program in 6 weeks flat. And I've always been a quick study. I just get it fast. I think they held me over so I could share my wisdom with the newcomers. And I came back to Nashville, Tennessee, where the only person that I knew that was in recovery was one of my customers, and I didn't want him to know. If you don't recognize that, that's newcomer thinking, terminal case. I'll die from what's going on in here fairly soon if I don't get some help with it. I set out to follow their aftercare plan. They said 90 meetings in 90 days. I went to 87. 2 of them I don't remember. One night I'm about to leave for the meeting. My son fell and injured himself. Took him to the hospital. And that's the right thing. And we all know that. And I thought if you missed, you just missed, because I can't figure it out all by myself. You can go to 2 meetings in a day. I have this minor case of terminal newcomer thing. He's going to kill me real soon. And stay away from the old playmates and playgrounds. My favorite bar in Nashville is on 8th Avenue South, and I had a 2-year chip in my pocket the next time my car was on 8th Avenue. I refused to turn onto the street for over 2 years. I'm not kidding you. I completed, I had to be careful here. Got to get very judgmental. Some very well-meaning people have taken the steps off the wall and add some psychobabble to try to help people. I wish they'd stop. But anyway, I completed this alleged 4-step. I'm going to give you the 2 best-kept secrets in all of AA. Here's the first one. The directions for doing a 4-step have been very cleverly concealed in the pages of this book. Shh. Anyway, I did this true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blanks, alleged 4-step. And y'all forgive me, it's just hot up here. And I tied it myself. And one of the questions, you still hate your mother. I mean, it was really, anyway. And I called down to the treatment center to Bernie. Bernie had not been my counselor, but I had the big white light experience. I'm going to have to tell somebody the whole story. And I looked at Bernie. I thought he's the perfect choice, because you could look at him and tell he was stoned out of his gourd. I mean, you know what it looks like when they're stoned, right? He's got this dumb grin. His face is real relaxed. He kind of shuffles when I thought, do my fist up with his junkie. Yeah, baby. 2 months from now, he won't even know if we did it, much less what I said. So I called him. He said, sure, and I drove. It's about 4 hours. And I did my 5th step with Bernie, which is where I began to get relief. Now, if I'd been doing the actual steps, that would be the ones out of this book. With an actual sponsor, that's one who's already done the steps out of this book. I would have been getting relief before then, but that's where I began to get relief. And kind of as an aside, Bernie was not actually stoned. Bernie was sober over 20 years. That was serenity. I didn't know what it looked like. Minor case of terminal newcomer thinking. At about 4 months, I've done everything but get a sponsor. All right, if you're under a year, don't try to fill in this blank. You won't get this one. Everybody else is a 2-word fill in the blank, all right? I was so insane, I was looking for a sponsor I could relate to. Isn't that insane? I can't figure I could go to 2 meetings in a day. Who can I relate to? Oh, yes, I can relate to some other squirrel that has no hope at all. Thank God I didn't find a sponsor I could relate to. We'd both be dead by now. God deliver me from a sponsor I can relate to. No, not that. What I needed was a sponsor whose suggestions I would follow. Why would I do that? I want to look like he looks. I want to sound like he sounds. I want my life to work like it looks like his life is working. And there stood a fellow named Jerry. And I said, Jerry, would you sponsor me? And he said, well, we'll see. Here's your first assignment. Assignment? I thought a sponsor's like a new best friend, going to show you around, show you some of the better meetings, maybe loan you some money, fix your wife. Oh, I was wrong about quite a few things. We don't have time to cover them all. And here's your first assignment. I don't have time to tell it tonight. Catch me alone. I'll be glad to tell you. Took me a week. I said, I did the assignment, sponsor me. Now, Jerry had been to the Nashville Zoo a week. He'd been just the nicest guy in the world before that. And he'd gotten a transfusion of tiger blood. It's the only explanation. And holy cow. And he said, I'll sponsor you my way. I started getting nervous. I said, what does that mean exactly? And he said, you are too sick to stay sober on the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. You will need the program also. And I got no idea what he's talking about. And I'm going to give you the #1 best-kept secret in all of AA. The way we keep it secret, by the way, is we read it at almost every meeting. It's the definition of the program. Read it for us tonight. Before step 1, it says, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a no steps, no program. Definition of insanity is thinking you're in a 12-step program and not actually taking all 12 steps. I'd like to propose, if you ain't taking 12, you ain't a 12-step program. Yeah. I asked Sandy Beach not too long before he died, I said, what's your mission when you approach an AA microphone? And he said, it's to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. My mission is I'm a step salesman. I'm here hoping somebody will hear and choose to do the step they're afraid of. I hope so. But anyway, he said, you will work these 12 steps the way I lay them out at the pace I set, or I will drop you like a bad habit because I don't work with losers. And he scared me so bad the truth jumped out of me. I don't know about you, but I save the truth for emergencies. I don't spread it around real thick. And, right, Ryan? Okay. And, but it jumped out of me. I said, Jerry, I don't want to do the 12 steps. He said, that's okay. I said, good. He said, as long as you do them. Jerry, I don't think we're communicating. And he gave me that definition of willingness is when you do what I say, whether you want to or not. Well, I don't like how this is going, so I hit him with my best shot. I said, why? Oh, yeah. And Jerry said, I don't answer why questions for the men I sponsor. And the reason is why is a management question. And step 1, section B says you ain't in management. Consequently, all of the questions begin with the word why have the same answer. And the answer is you don't need to know. Hated that when he said it. Today, I embrace it. It's one of my cornerstones. So I always thought it was not knowing that made me crazy. Incorrect. It was needing to know that was making me crazy. When I laid down the need to know, I got peaceful and began to know. Jim Williams, AA speaker out of Houston, Texas, was an old friend of Danny's, one of the greatest speakers we ever had, and he talks about that. Get one of his talks. Don't go to bed tonight without getting one of Jim Williams' talks. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'm feeling generous, Sparky. I'm going to give you one why question in a lifetime. Don't ever ask another one. I didn't for 25 years, at which time I went insane. He said the reason you have to do the 12 steps is because that alcohol and those alcohol substitutes you've been taking are not your problem. What? He said they're your answer. They make you tall enough, smart enough to look up that whole routine. So when we say to a guy like you, put that stuff down, we have not said put down your problem. We've said lay down the only answer you've ever known. This is why your skin fits. This is the lubricant of life. Put that down. And when you do, that leaves you without an answer. And you're the kind of guy who needs an answer. You've never been an alcoholic. So if you're going to put it down and leave it down, you're going to have to pick up a new answer that's at least as good as the old answer. At least as good. And it is. To me, the most powerful promise in our book is on page 60. It's the first line. It says 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. I love the way you read it tonight. Some people read a result. It's not what it says. The is singular. Promise me one thing as the result of these steps. It's a spiritual awakening. It's my experience. Spiritually awakened alcoholics don't drink beverage alcohol, and they don't get thirsty. They don't get thirsty. If you're new, the mission isn't to keep you, to change you so you never drink again. It's not it. It's to change you so you never want to again. And I didn't know that was possible when I got here. And I know thousands of people who had that experience. And so I'm saying why every time the man takes a breath. And he says, our program's kind of like going to the dentist. We have to drill before we can fill. Like that's what the first 9 steps are about. We got to dig that poison out of your soul. But like the dentist, we get Novocaine. Here we call it sponsorship, fellowship, home group, love. It's not near as hard as the way you've been living. And this is where he got me. This is what I came to tell you. He said, think of yourself as a garbage can. Got that one, Jerry. What we're going to do with these steps is we're going to dump you out. We're going to stand the can. We're going to scrub the can clean, stand it back upright. We're going to go through your life. Most of it is garbage, and we're going to throw it away. Portions are good. Example, do you love your children? Yes, I love them a lot. He's good. We'll keep that. We finish these steps, you're going to be a big, empty, clean can with just a little good stuff in the bottom. And the reason is that one of these days something heavy is going to slam into your heart. He said, your father's going to die. And on that day, you got a little good stuff in the bottom. But on that day, if you don't have that big, empty, clean space to store that pain in while we love you back to spiritual health, you will escape. And the only escapes you know are killing you and tearing the hearts out of the people that love you. And I ran out of why. And I allowed the man to coach me through those 12 steps. And I got a spiritual awakening. And the day came. This story has a happy ending, okay? My daughter's fine. She sends you love. We swapped texts yesterday. But on the 4th of July, sometime the night of, in 1993, she fired a pistol into her mouth. And I found her in a pool of blood in her bed the next morning. I don't usually tell this piece, but I'm going to tell it tonight, and I don't know why, but it just came up real strong. And I am no shining example of what we do here. all right? But there is magic in following the directions in this book, and this is what you've done with me. I was able to kneel at her bed prior to dialing 911 and say, God, if it's your will to take her, take her. If it's your will for her to be here a mess, okay. If it's your will for her to be good, okay. I was able to hold the most precious thing in my life up to a God who is worthy of that and say, your will, not mine, be done. I still can't believe that you did that with somebody as sick as I am, but that's what you did. And we rushed to Vanderbilt Hospital. They told us for the first 4 days that she will not live. This is a successful suicide. We cannot save her. You'll bury her this week. 4 days is a long time. And I believe if I had not had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I would have committed first-degree murder that week. Pretty good chance. Wasn't necessary. And I want to tell you what happened. Sometime over the next few days, by dark that day, the lobby of that hospital looked just like this. It was absolutely full of AA and Al-Anon members. There's well over 100 of you in there doing a prayer meeting. Well over 100. I went home over the next few days briefly and packed a bag and moved into her hospital room, and I didn't leave for 60 days. And you didn't either. There wasn't a time in the next 60 days there wasn't a member of my home group, closest I am to James right here. 24 hours a day for 2 full months you were there. Not to keep me from drinking. Nobody talked about it. So that one of my people would be there to hold me. If I need to cry at 3 o'clock in the morning, one of my people would be there to hold me. Don't tell me, show me. All right, I'm a word merchant myself. Don't tell me. You can pretend to care. You cannot pretend to show up. And you showed up. You showed up in spades. I had come to you in the summer of '84 unable to cry. A very famous guy, we got some of those in Nashville, in my home group, and I'm watching this guy cries in almost every meeting. And I finally said to him, tell me about the tears. And he said, man, somebody says something beautiful and it touches my heart and I weep. And I said, I can't cry. And he said, I'll teach you. He did. And it's meant the world to me. I think my emotions are how my spirit communicates to my mind and my body. And I can't afford to block that channel. And so I had to learn to cry. And I typed it up, by the way, and I'm not kidding. If you'd like to learn to cry, there's a bunch of them laying right down there in the corner of that stage. I must warn you, gentlemen, you start crying at appropriate times and places, you'll attract a lot of women. Do not call me and complain about this. For I warned you right up front, they're sick of that John Wayne act you're doing, and they see right through it. They're so much deeper than we are. Yeah. And I'll tell you what surprised me. I've already had a lady here ask me for it. I went public with this 20 years ago, and I thought this is going to be like 98% men and 2% women. It's about 60-40. I'm astounded how many women can't cry. I can teach you. I'd love to. And anyway, grab one of these after if you'd like. But it's my experience on learning to cry. And my daughter did fine, I told you. She came out of it. She's blind in one eye. She's lost some coordination. She and her husband presented us with a granddaughter who'll be 13 this summer. And she's doing just fine. Sponsored. And she likes what you've done with me. And sponsored 2 men whose sons were killed. Only son, both the boys were in their teens. And I watched both of those guys go through that. And not only not drink, but not get thirsty. Grief beyond anything I can imagine. Thirsty didn't happen. Both sober over 30 years today. Yeah, powerful, but don't doubt the power here. And I moved out of the home my first wife and I were living in when I was sober 6 years. She used to control me with my guilt, and I was guilty. And I went through these steps. I got my innocence back, and she couldn't control me, and it made her crazy. And if she was sitting in the front row, I'd tell it this way. This is how I saw it. And I'm standing there, and she's screaming at me one more time. And I got this moment of clarity, and I realized she's 5'5" and maybe 100 pounds, and I'm 6 feet and 210. And I'm just before giving her a straight right to the face. And when she goes down, I'm going with her. She's on the way to the hospital. I'm on the way to the jail. It's a bad plan. I worked it out all by myself. And it's a good thing there wasn't anybody else there. And I did an about face and walked out while she was still screaming. Bought a newspaper, got the want ads, started looking for apartments, and 48 hours later, I moved. It was imminent. And you talk about the horns of a dilemma. I don't believe in divorce, and yet I know if I live with her, I'm going to hit her. And what to do? And I went to the old time and said, what should I do? And they said, turn it over. I said, how? They couldn't tell me. I don't ask you to believe this came from God. I believe it did, because I prayed and asked him, how do I do that? And I was given a gift, and I share it with you in case you got something similar. And the gift was 3 prayers. Prayer number 1, if it's your will for us to be together, put us together. Number 2, if it's your will for us to be apart, put us apart. Those are the easy ones. Here's the big one. God, if it's your will for me not to know today, leave me not knowing. When I can pray that one and mean it, I can have my sponsor's definition of serenity. He said, serenity is not freedom from the storm. Serenity is peace in the midst of the storm. And the only way I can have that is to give up my need to manage the storm. And the only way I can do that is to know the manager of all storms. And if he doesn't want me to know today, I'm asking not to know. And I was able to do that for about a year and be at peace in the middle of the storm, not knowing. And then one day I knew. And we divorced sometime not too long after that, as my beloved talked about it. She and I started dating. We did something you probably heard about. It's called vertical dating. Work it out. And sometime in that process, our souls became entwined, and I can't explain that to you. And nothing has ever happened that's changed that. The AA microphone can be a poisonous thing, and I did way too much of this. And I have an alter ego I call Saint Scott of the microphone as a sick guy. And I became very much in love with my AA persona. You know, I'm just a puking drunk from down south who had a sponsor who made him do the step work. But I became very much impressed with myself. And in about late 2007 or maybe early 2008, I started getting involved in internet pornography. And I got sicker and sicker, and I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my road dogs, couldn't tell my sponsor, could tell anybody. I got sicker and sicker and sicker, and eventually a young lady made a suggestion to me, and I violated my marriage vows. And I'll tell you, I don't think the first step in a bad direction is the big one, it's the second one. If I take the first step in a bad direction and come clean with it with my sponsor and my road dogs and everybody, I don't take the second step. And if she suggested that way back then, I think I'd have been able to say no. At any rate, it doesn't matter. What's as important, and I pray I never get involved in it kind of thing again. I got real sick, and of course I got caught. And if you're doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing, and you prayed a third step prayer, don't be concerned about what's going to happen if you get caught, because it's not a if question. It's a when question. And we tried to hold it together. We got therapy. We did all kinds of stuff, and just could not stick it together. And she says we divorced. It's not accurate. She had divorced me, and that is accurate, and rightly so. And the color went out of my life. My life was in black and white. That would have been in maybe 11. And Joe, who talked on Thursday night, thank you again for saving my life, gave me a job in his company he knew I couldn't do, that I couldn't be trained to do, and he paid me for a year to do a job I couldn't do. Save my life. Thank you. And Wall Street Dan took my guns away, and my life was just in black and white. And she would call me occasionally, and we'd chat, and geez, it would just light me up. And she called me one time, and we had such a good conversation. I called her the next night, and she said, it's just too hard. I can't talk to you. And that night I prayed, and I said, okay, God, I got it. I'm the one that burned this to the ground. This is my fault, and I cannot ask to have her back. But if there's something I can do to help her heal, if you'll let me know what it is, I'll pay any price. And not too long after that, as she told the story, Sandy died, and I went to his memorial service, and we got back together. And the first thing she said to me is, I've been seeing that short haircut for too long. I want to see a ponytail. And it hasn't been all roses. There's been thorns, but we're together, and our souls are entwined, and that's just simply how it is. And I cannot explain that either, but I can sure report it. What a phenomenal gift. I'm going to talk about the other thing I don't want to talk about. And Dr. Paul, please get one of his talks. The guy that wrote that thing about acceptance. He said that before he got to recovery, if he did something bad, he hid it. If he did something good, he told everybody. In recovery, it's the exact opposite way. If I do something bad, I have to tell you about it. If I do something good, I have to hide it. It's called anonymity. It's doing something good and not getting caught. And so anyway, I have to tell this one also. And And if you've done what I'm about to talk about and you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. I'm not here to indict you, but I must tell my story. Some in this room might die if I don't tell this. So please, don't hear anything political in this. There is nothing in it. As a young man, I paid for an abortion. It felt like I'd kill one of my own children. That's what I was thinking about when I lay in that hospital bed, and my soul screamed for forgiveness and got it. And I get to the 8th step under the care of a big book. You know, I changed the word. I had another word I used to use, and a lady came to me one time, and she said, I'm German, and that word offends me. And I said, have you got another word? She said, how about enthusiast? I am now a big book enthusiast, as Jerry was. This is page 83. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. I was shown how to write that letter. My experience with the 4th step is that although there's writing involved, it is the observations and prayers that are life-changing. My experience with this letter is that it's not the writing, it is the tears. And I wrote up how I was shown to write that letter. Do you notice my demeanor has not changed since I told this to you? We talk about a new freedom. The old freedom was 4 shots of Cuervo Gold so I could come out and play. The new freedom is I become okay with me. And I watch God using the worst things I've ever done as tools to help other people. If you need to make amends to somebody who's dead for whatever reason, it's on the back of this How to Cry thing. They're down there. It's my experience with it, and it's been such a phenomenal gift for me to be able to do that, to share what I've been given. And I think that's what it's for. I think a mistake is nothing more than an invitation to a lesson. And for me, the learning process is make a mistake, be notified I made the mistake. I don't always know. Own the mistake instead of lying my way out of it. Make the amend, embrace the lesson, share the lesson. But when I share the lesson, I have to tell you I made the mistake, because if I just share the lesson, I'm preaching and nobody wants to hear it. When I tell you I made the mistake, you can hear me. As I stand as a sinner next to a sinner, we can hear each other. And I think that's why it's so important for me that God uses these worst things I've ever done as tools to help other people. Page 124 says words to the effect of, cling to the thought in God's hands, dark past is the greatest possession you have. With it you can avert death and misery for them. I've had this experience a number of times, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands in a minute. It's when somebody who has a right to ask me a question asked me a question, and the moment before they asked, I did not know the answer. And I opened my mouth, and not BS, but a peach of the great truth falls out. And 3 hours later, I can't quote it. Sometimes I can't even remember what it was, because it wasn't of me, it was through me, it wasn't for me, it was for him. Who's had that experience? Put them up, keep them way up, way up. Everybody, yeah, can you believe it? Everybody else, stick around and do these 12 steps, and wait till you get that one time. My buddy Joe here calls those postcards from God. Dear Scott, you must be doing something right, or we couldn't have pulled that off. I got your back, love God. That's what they say in it, Joe. You didn't tell that, so I get to. And I had an experience years ago where I got to do something good for somebody else and not get caught. That's what anonymity is. And so I didn't tell for about 6 months. But when I do something good and don't get caught, it's like there's a piece of sunshine about the size of a ping pong ball just appears in my chest. And I can think about what I did, and it'll glow and send light through my whole body. But if I tell, it gets out. And I know people that are full of them, and I'm going to tell you this particular one. I was fishing at a state park, and there's a family, and they're having a picnic, and they got a 7-year-old boy, and he and I are going to fish together, apparently. Looks like I'm going to cast. He's going to do everything else. We caught a couple of fish. He was a fisherman. First time he'd ever held one. At 7 years old, I was a fisherman. I get it. I was between wives. I had some time, and I got to know the family, took him on some short trips when I was absolutely sure he was a fisherman. And he and I put a canoe in the Buffalo River about an hour west of Nashville. And we floated 5 miles of river in 8 hours one day, caught over 100 fish. It was one of the magic days where everything we did worked. The kid caught a 4-pound smallmouth bass. He got my fish is what happened. I'm all right. I really am okay with it. I really am okay with it. Really am. And about a mile before we got to the takeout point, the sky blackens and I hear the thunder. We're fixing to take it, and all we can do is hunker down and take it. And I slide over to the side of the river under these leaves, and I'm about to give God a little piece of, hey, did you notice St. Scott down here? I'm not even kin to this kid. He caught the, and I'm about to do this prayer, you see. And this beautiful kid looks over his shoulder at me and he says, is it okay to fish here? And if you walk this path, man, these you never know when one of these things is going to fall out of the sky on you. And I think that's the prayer I'm supposed to take to my Father on the days when the skies in my life blacken and I hear the thunder. All I can do is take it. Is it okay to fish here? Because I think that's my assignment. I stand here before you in my stocking feet. We invited God to the meeting, and my feet could be on holy ground, and I try to carry that in my heart when I come up here. It's been pretty good for me tonight. I've been on the verge of tears. I love you beyond anything I can tell you. And my last flight in that high-performance plane, I leveled at 40,000 feet, 3.5 minutes after brake release. And Jacksonville Center gave me what's called a barrel. It's a 30-mile circle around a point in the ground with an altitude block. They gave me all of controlled airspeed, which is 18,000 to 60. They told us regularly not to exceed 45,000 feet in this airplane, and the reason is because there are things that can happen in that ultra-thin air above 45,000, things that can happen up there that you will not recover from. Let me translate not recover for you. That's spin, crash, burn, die, and owe them an airplane. That's what that means. But I was young and immortal, and I wondered how high it would go. I came back out of afterburner because if you use the afterburners at high altitude, it gets very quiet when the engines quit because they're gonna. So I'm in military power. I'm doing 9/10 of the speed of sound, which is right at 700 miles an hour. Pull the nose up and rolling about 15 degrees of bank to stay in this 30-mile circle, and I'm climbing. And the answer to the question is 52,300. If I got 52.8 would have been 10 miles. She just wouldn't do the other 500 feet. And the airplane I told you about that rolls 720, now I can wash the cockpit out with the stick and nothing happens. Because at 700 miles an hour, there's just enough wind coming over the wings to keep this girl flying. And I rolled out because I realized she wasn't going to climb anymore, and I rolled out to level flight and looked up. I'd done an instrument climb. I've not looked outside. I rolled up and looked for the first time. I rolled out on north. I didn't mean to. I'm 80, 100 miles west of Jacksonville, where the state of Florida makes this little turn. I'm about here. And I'm on north, which is this heading. It's not this one. And I look over my right shoulder. The sun's coming up. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 on a clear day. The sky above me is black as his shirt. And I look out to the west and saw the curvature of the earth. And I didn't see it a little bit. I saw it. This thing we're riding is a ball. It's blue. It's magnificent. I see it again. And it's floating in space. It's just floating there. And in the poem High Flight, the author says, I put out my hand and touched the face of God. I did that morning. And it felt like something warm had been poured over me and run down me like the sides of a candle. And today, the people who fly airplanes who would go to those altitudes refer to seeing the curvature of the earth as touching the face. That's its nickname today. In October of 1967, there were not a lot of people that had seen the curvature of the earth. Yeah. And I brought up the throttle. I sat there for maybe a minute, certainly no more than 2. Eased the throttles back very carefully, came down, shot one approach, and landed. And I don't tell them. I might be the town drunk. I ain't the village idiot. I don't tell them. They have to catch me. I'm not telling them. And I didn't tell that story the entire time I was in recovery. And I spoke at Burke Harlan. I just gave you Burke's talk. I spoke at his 12-year birthday, and I was sober a lot less than 12. And I told that story, and in the telling, I heard myself say, I don't know why I'm telling this. Of course you do. It was my first spiritual experience. I don't recognize it for 30 years. I'm not a skyrocket to success here. And you can't do something like that and not want to do it again. In 2004, my business had a pretty good year. And I went out to Nashville International Airport, and I chartered a Learjet. Now, they don't let me drive anymore. It's probably the right thing. And put Miss Linda and 2 kids in the back of the Learjet, and a Lear will go to 51,000 feet. Would you like to know how I know that? Would you like to know what you can see from 51,000 feet on a clear day? And I'm planning to see the curvature of the earth again. Aren't you? Aren't you? We serve a big God. I learned from Miss Linda to dream big. I had the privilege of spending Don Pritz's last Thanksgiving with him, and we all knew that's what it was. He was down in Panhandle, Florida with Jackie, and I was able, he was the guy who could take the question nobody could answer, and he answers first time, every time, boom, and it's always principle-based. We don't do motive, right? Good motive is the worst thing on planet Earth. There's more hell been brought to Earth under the banner of good motive than anything else I can name. If that doesn't make any sense to you, let's talk later, but really, we do principle. You know, that's why Chainsaw Mike says step 12 does not say having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these meetings. we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to have good motives in all our affairs. Not what it says. But his answers were always principle-based, and a principle works first time every time. Cliff Roach, get one of Cliff's dogs. He said, the 12 traditions are a set of principles designed to protect AA from my very best motives. That's exactly right. That's what our principles do. They protect us from our motives. Read page 60 in the book. It tells me I can't trust my motives. But Pritz was always principle-based. And we were sitting at a very small coffee table. The girls were sitting next to us, and they did not see this happen. And I was able to ask him the question, been terrifying me for a long time. And the question was, what are guys like Scott going to do when guys like Don are all gone? I asked him that. And this humble, gentle giant cupped his hands like this, and he leaned over to me and he said, I have been bringing you hands full of water. Go to the river. And that was the answer. Metaphorically, he said, he'd gained access to a wisdom and a power vastly beyond his own that he believed was available to me, and I believe is available to everyone in this room. I want to close with, I think, are the directions to get into that river. Most important thing I've said tonight. I think it's the most important thing ever been said in an AA meeting. Here are the steps we took, which is suggested as a program of recovery. I love you with all my heart. Thanks so much. Wow. Woo.